Reaction on Capitol Hill to the president's statement that he had withheld information from the Congress was quick and angry. Bruce Morton reports.
I really am not prepared at this moment to make any comment at all.
Are you considering resigning?
The president's lawyers, James St. Clair and J. Fred Buzzart, brought the news first to the House and then the Senate. No commenting reporters' questions, saving their explanations for meetings with what had been the president's hardcore defenders. But the hardcore turned hot and angry as molten steel. Three who fought for the president on the Judiciary Committee, for instance. Charles Wiggins of California. The president personally agreed to certain acts, the purpose and intent of which were to interfere with the FBI investigation of the Watergate break-in. These facts, standing alone, Wiggins said, are legally sufficient, in my opinion, to sustain at least one count against the president of conspiracy to obstruct justice. I have reached the painful conclusion that the President of the United States should resign. Failing that, the President's career must be terminated involuntarily. Delbert Latta of Ohio. We're going to have to do some rethinking. This was evidence that was withheld from us. This is part of an obstruction of justice. Charles Sandman of New Jersey. It certainly changes my vote. This is devastating. A key undecided Republican, Barbara Conable of New York.
It's tough to put your loyalty in someone who abuses it. And I think that's the way many Republicans are going to feel.
Early Senate Republican Whip Griffin of Michigan suggested the president resign.
Where both the national interest and his own interest will best be served by resigning. It's not just his enemies who feel that way. Many of his best friends, and I consider myself one of them, believe now that this would be the most appropriate course. Needless to say, this would be an awesome, very difficult decision for him to reach. But I believe that he will see it that way too.
After learning of the conversations released today, Griffin said he was disappointed that the president's decision to stay seems irrevocable. The impact of today's events will take time to measure, but it seems clear already that President Nixon's fight to avoid impeachment in the House is dead, and his chances to survive a Senate trial are increasingly uncertain. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
Today's explosive Watergate developments occurred as Vice President Ford was returning from another of his trips around the country. Phil Jones reports.
The vice president was in New Orleans when the Camp David activity started. Asked at the time if he had any idea what was going on, the vice president said no, he didn't, but he wished he did. As one aide put it, we are as tuned in as we usually are, but he said, don't forget the president didn't tell us in advance that he could die of phlebitis when he was in the Mideast. So why would you think he would keep us informed now? The vice president returned to his office this afternoon, where he has been since. He has not met with the president, according to his press aide, but a few moments ago he did issue the following statement. Says Ford, I have not listened to the tapes, nor have I read the transcripts of the president's conversations with Mr. Haldeman. Without knowing what was said in the context of it, my comments would serve no useful purpose, and I will have none. Indeed, I have come to the conclusion that the public interest is no longer served by my previously expressed belief that on the basis of all the evidence known to me and the American public, the president is not guilty of any impeachable offense under the constitutional definition of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Mr. Ford continued to say, there are no precedents to guide me on this except my conscience, and I refuse further comment at this time. Phil Jones, CBS News, Washington.
As part of its impeachment evidence, the House Judiciary Committee had 19 White House tapes. Today, other members of the House began listening to those tapes. Connie Chung reports.
About half of the House members trickled into 4 rooms, donned earphones, and for the first time listened to 5 White House tape recordings. 19 conversations will be played and replayed from morning until night all this week. Members emerged with different reactions. Democrat Benjamin Rosenthal said the cover-up comes through, you can sense it. Republican Jack Edwards said he heard nothing to change his position against impeachment. Undecided Democrat David Bowen said he was left with a more sympathetic impression of the president's words. But undecided Republican Frank Horton had a different view.
I'm appalled at the attitude of the people that are talking, the language that's used, the manner in which things are expressed in the presence of the president. To that extent, it's damaging. And I also think that some of the information that's contained in the tapes is very damaging with regard to the question of impeachment.
Tomorrow, the March 21st tape in which the president discussed hush money payments will run repeatedly almost every hour of the day. Connie Chung, CBS News, Washington.
Rumors that the president might resign brought fluctuation to the stock market today. At the end of the day, the Dow Jones Industrials were up almost 8 points. Volume on the New York Stock Exchange was 11.25 million shares. The average